Welcome to Star Wars Comics and Canon. The Force is strong with this one.
Hello there guys, and welcome to a very special episode of Genuine Chit-Chat. So this week I am joined by my lovely co-host Megan, as well as Rhea Carrigan and JAC. So I just want to address a couple things here. First of all, this is airing on the feed of Genuine Chit-Chat on the YouTube channel of Genuine Chit-Chat and also on the feed of Comics in Motion. So if you're listening on one of those feeds and you want to swap over to another one, then go ahead, be my guest. But I am speaking to the other three individuals I just mentioned, and we are talking about the 9-episode anthology anime series, Star Wars Visions. So you can watch all of Visions dubbed or subbed on Disney+. Each episode is between 15 and 25 minutes, so they're all quite digestible. And we all in this episode watched it on dubbed, so with English voice actors. And I just want to clarify that I've made extensive show notes, so you guys can find all the different bits and pieces that each of us are involved with. And I'll be back at the end to give you guys even more information. So right at the end of this chat, I'm going to give you some information on what's coming up for Genuine Chit-Chat and for Star Wars Comics in Canon. But there's a quick promo for the Spider-Dan and the Secret Boars podcast, and a link to that is in the description as well, so make sure you check that show out because it is amazing. But there's not really much else here to add, guys. So as always, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you rate, review, share, and be good to each other. And I'll be back at the end to give more information on what's coming up.
Hello, Spider-Dan here of the Spider-Dan and the Secret Boars podcast. Just wanted to give you a quick introduction on what I do and why you should check it out. My main mission for the podcast is to spotlight the best kept secrets in entertainment that a mainstream audience may find boring. I have various guests from all walks of life, including friends, family, comic book professionals and actors, while also doing the odd solo podcast and Patreon YouTube video here and there. If you like entertaining and informative discussions and are sick of content creators covering the same old MCU and Netflix programming, take a walk on the wild and the weird side. Swing over to spiderdanandthesecretboars.com for all the information you may need, such as links to the podcast, social media accounts, and how you can support the podcast. That's spiderdanandthesecretboars.com. That's BORES. Thanks for joining me, and as always, prepare for prattle.
Welcome to Genuine Chit-Chat, where we have honest conversations with interesting people. And I'm your host, Mike Burton. I should have thought of what I was going to start this with, but... And here we are. There we go. That's how I'm starting. We are here, well, I am here with three wonderful guests. We're going to talk about Star Wars Visions. We think it's been enough time now that anyone who really wants to watch them will probably have seen them all by now. I should have written down when they came out, but I think it was some point in September. I think it's early-ish September. So if people, this is going to be slightly spoilerific, I guess, but because all of them are quite short, there's only one or two storylines, which I think you could even spoil, but we're probably going to spoil them anyway, because they're the best parts of some of them. So we're just going to go into it. Was I right, is it?
22nd of September.
Thank you, Megan. That's what you're here for. But yes, I am joined by Megan, as
Hello.
Obviously I just addressed. And then we're also joined by two wonderful individuals from the Pop Gorillas and just a few other random bits and pieces around Comics in Motion, and a new show as well. How exciting. So I'll introduce one of you first. Let's go with you, JAC. Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Mike. It's nice to meet Megan officially. Heard a lot of Megan because obviously being a patron, it means I get to hear a lot more from her than the general podcasting public. So it's nice to. Yeah, I was listening to your Halloween. I listened to your Don't Breathe earlier today when I was pottering around the house doing some stuff. So there were a couple of classic rambles, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the time we have the episodes, it's it's called Don't Breathe, and we talk about that for 5 minutes, and then it's a 20-minute podcast, and the rest of it's just nonsense. Thank you very much, Jack. I appreciate that. And also joining us is someone who's recently started their own show, gone solo. In 2 years' time, she's going to be too big for Comics in Motion. She's going to be on a trajectory into fame. And that is Rhea. Hello, yes. Rhea. Tell people about your new show.
That is definitely what's going to happen. That is the future that I envision. Yeah. All bow down to me, my podcast fame. Yes, my new show is Femme on Film. I just launched the first episode with the lovely Tony Farina about Josie and the Pussycats, which everybody should go and watch because it's amazing. So go and listen to that. It's on Comics in Motion. It came out on Sunday the 24th, if I got my dates correct. I have no idea. It's a Wednesday, right? Who knows? So go have a listen.
I was trying to think of what day it was. Yes, it is a Wednesday. I only know because we're seeing Venom tomorrow. That's how my days are. It's just how many days till we get to see Venom 2.
Yeah.
That's it. But yes, we're talking about Visions. So obviously include links, as I was saying, in the description to everyone's exciting websites. I'll put in Ria's questions in there as well for a laugh, because that's always fun just to put in there. And obviously, Jack, I'll put your movie review blog up as well. I do enjoy seeing that. Whenever it's on Twitter, I'm always excited because it's in-depth reviews, but also spoiler-free. It's a very...
it's nice to hear.
Prequel to Pop Gorillas in a lot of ways. But
yeah.
I'm loath to give him a compliment, but that's why it's so good, because you can just go on and read it in sort of like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's not rubbish. I was going to swear. I don't know why I paused from swearing.
You can swear as much as you want.
I was like, ooh.
It's not worth spending any more than 2 minutes with me. By that point, you're bored, you're annoyed, you're like, just get out. 2 minutes is enough.
It's succinct and it gets the point across. It's not sort of like one of these. There's a journalist for The Guardian, Peter Bradshaw, who I do not like as a film reviewer. I think he's terrible. And like, he cannot write good reviews, in my opinion. And they are too long and they are too verbose. And I feel like Jack is the opposite of that.
Yeah, because I read your Halloween Kills one, and I knew that you don't spoil them. So I thought, I'm interested to hear what Jack thought of Halloween Kills without him spoiling it or doing what I do, which is waffle endlessly about everything. So it's quite nice. Pop Gorillas, if anyone's listening and haven't checked out either Jack's blog or Pop Gorillas, what are you doing? Finish this, then check those out. But Pop Gorillas is excellent. Yeah, it's just spoiler-free movie reviews that you can listen to that take less time than a pop song. So they're only like 2 or 3 minutes. The Ted Lasso one it's the shortest one, but it absolutely kills me. And we've almost finished Ted Lasso now. So it just said nothing at all apart from it's fucking great. And that was it. And that was brilliant.
I'm really pleased with that. And you can tell that the episode that I watched just before I recorded it, which was the Roy Kent quote about going off and having a wank. And I was like, I'm just going to say it because it's one of the greatest lines I've ever heard in TV.
He's got a podcast as well, actually.
Brett Goldstein, his Films to Be Buried With, which is excellent. Everybody should go and listen. Well, after listening to all of our stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you're going to only listen to one movie podcast, listen to anything on Comics in Motion. But if you've got your space in your life for 2 or 3, then, go Movies to Be Buried With. But I only discovered that recently. But we're here to talk about Star Wars. Very different take on Star Wars, actually. It's quite interesting because Marvel/Disney released What If and Visions, basically really, really similar to each other. So it was just like, here's loads of stuff that isn't canon to either universes at the same time. And there's that part of me that's kind of like, I enjoyed both What If and Visions, but it was like, I would have rather they did like, Visions came out when like Loki came out or something, and then What If came out with something else Star Wars-y that was, canon in essence. But we can talk about the canon connections anyway. So why don't we start? I'll quickly ask each of you, because I know Megan's opinion on this. Were either of you very excited when Visions got announced and you found out it was, anime and that sort of thing? If I go with Rhea first, do you have any intrigue into anime or anything like that? Like, what were your first thoughts when you heard about its announcement and before watching it?
Yeah, pretty excited. It hits all the things that I like. So Star Wars, anime, animation, sort of connected to the canon Star Wars universe, but a bit different. Japanese animation studios, all of those things that I love. I watch like a lot of Japanese animation and things like that. So pretty excited. And then I watched them all over the weekend, and we'll get onto our opinions soon.
Indeed. And what about you, Jack?
Much less so, if I'm honest. Ria's brought a lot of Ghibli into my life because I know what a big passionate fan she is. And I do like the ones that she showed me and told me to watch. But generally, I'm not a big anime fan, if I'm honest. I know Akira is held up in this great regard, and it's fine. I've
got it. I haven't watched it, but I've got it on Blu-ray. Someone gave it to me.
It will come back up when we talk about one of the episodes later, because one of the episodes in Visions really reminded me of it because of a particular thing, which we'll get to. Let's not spoil that because, edge of our seats people about what we've got to say there. But actually, the trailer sold me completely. I know we'd already spoken about it, Mike, and you said, check it out, see what you think. And that then did sell me because I wanted to see something fresh and new and different.
Yeah.
So yeah, one over quite quickly, I would say.
Yeah, and I would say with me, like, Megan it's quite funny. I'm more similar to you, Rhea, and Megan's more similar to Jack in the sense of I I like anime. I don't love it. Like, I love Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I used to watch Dragon Ball Z when I was younger, and I've seen like a fair few. I used to watch like Vampire Hunter D and
I love Vampire Hunter D.
Yeah, and those sort of things. So I've seen like a bits and pieces of anime, and obviously with I've seen Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke. I haven't seen many other Studio Ghibli films, but I've seen those two, and I keep meaning to watch more. Megan, however, is actively not a fan of anime, doesn't like the animation. I showed her Spirited Away. She was not a fan.
I don't
How is
like,
that even possible?
I don't like weird films.
We don't like Alice in Wonderland, and Spirited Away really is just Alice in Wonderland.
The thing with me, and I apologise to anyone that's heard me say this before, but I can watch a film and enjoy it, and then one thing can happen in that film, and it can ruin the entire movie for me. Like, it's literally like the flick of a switch, really.
Yeah, it's not very, you do not forgive things.
Yeah, my problem with Spirited Away is I didn't like the thing that ate everything.
No Face.
Yeah, I didn't like him. He creeped me out, and that ruined the movie for me. I really didn't like it.
That's the point of No Face.
Exactly, that's what I said. I was like, he's meant to creep you out.
My 3-year-old has like a No Face big pillow thing that's like the size of her, and she loves it.
Yeah, No Face is great.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, I wasn't fussed at all. If it wasn't for Mike, I wouldn't have watched any of Visions. But I'm kind of the same as you, Jack, that once I saw the trailer, I was like, actually, that does look pretty good.
Yeah. When I heard about it, I was like, I'll watch it because, I'm a Star Wars junkie, so anything new that comes out, I will consume. But I was like, don't know, if I was one of those people who's like, it's not canon, so it's unrestricted, which is fun and really cool, and it's like an experimental playground, which I was intrigued by, but I wasn't like, oh yeah. And then I saw that trailer, and I was like, oh lord. I mean, I think there are a couple of these episodes that are phenomenal. However, I would argue that the trailer's probably better than 3 or 4 of these.
Yeah.
Just, it's one of those things where they're very up and down, but I like that. And I'm glad they're not too long either. If these were all like an hour long, it would be too much.
Yeah.
And there's 2 of them I'd want to be an hour long, but aside from them, like, one of the good things when me and Megan watched it, and Megan wasn't that fast, I was like, well, these are only max 25 minutes. So even if you're really not in the mood, let's just watch one. And so we've just watched 1 or 2 every few days.
Yeah, and then also because is it an anthology?
Yes, yeah.
Because it's an anthology, if I really didn't want to watch it, we watched one of the shorter ones first and then came back to the ones that were like 25 minutes.
Yeah, and the good thing was as well is because obviously they're all made by different studios with different voice actors and everything is different. I think 2 of them are made by the same studio, but aside from that, like they're all generally very different. So it's like even if you despise one of them, the next one's completely different. And I quite like the layout of them as well, where it's not like, all the amazing ones at the start, they're all actually, and then all the kind of not as actually ones from there. So let's, without any more preamble, let's move on to the first one, which is The Duel, which I'll start off by saying this is one that is the only Visions episode that has additional content. There's a book out called Ronin, and it basically gives a lot more weight to the world. I've heard people review it and things, and it's intriguing, but in essence, all of these are somewhat canon adjacent. Some of them are, you could tell, like the next one we're going to talk about, Tatooine Rhapsody, that literally could happen. Like that's so inside the world of canon, it could actually happen. Whereas some of the other ones, you can kind of guess where they may or may not be in the story. The Duel is its own completely new universe. And I'm going to spark it off by saying the animation style of this is probably the best animation I think I've ever seen in my life for anything. I absolutely adored it. I love the scheme of colours. I love the style. I just loved every element of that. So with that in mind, Megan, why don't you start us off with your opinion of The Duel? Because this was, at the start of Visions, you were like the most resistant to watch them.
Yeah, but
and so
I don't know why you're starting with me, as if you think I'm going to remember every single one of them.
No, I know, but obviously you're not going to remember them all. Don't worry.
Like, I don't even remember The Duel. Is this the one that was grainy?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're like, Megan, start us with your opinion.
No, because I knew that
I can remember that it was grainy.
I remember that you'll remember this the least, and I'll start the 2.
Is this the one that had the droid in it as well?
Well, they all have droids.
Yeah, well,
the one that's like R2-D2 with a hat on.
Yeah, and then it gets fixed by someone.
Yeah, when the pot boils.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, it was all right, I guess. I don't really remember
I knew she wouldn't say a lot.
About it.
It sounds...
I don't want to be involved in this now. I just want it to be Megan and each one just going, yeah, it was all right.
That's literally how I respond to anything that Mike ever shows me. He's like, oh, Megan, what was your opinion of this? I'm like, yeah, it was all right.
That's why I started Afterthoughts, though, because it's the only way, if I turn the mic
it's the only way that Mike can get anything out of me.
I can... Sometimes we'd watch movies and I'd be like, what do you think of that? She's like, yeah, it's all right. And I'll be like, anything else? Not really. It's like, what? So I have to like force her to do an afterthought. So when she's sat in front of a camera and it's just the mic and it's just the two of us, then she'll kind of go into detail a little bit more. But
I need other people to talk about it first because it will jog my memory as to what happened.
I didn't think you'd say a lot about this, and that's the only reason I started with
I remember not enjoying it that much, but I think that's because I just really didn't want to watch Visions.
Was this the first one you guys watched as well then?
Yeah.
We watched... Well, we
did watch this one first.
Yeah, we did, but we watched them relatively in chronological order. I know we watched one or two out of order, but I wanted to watch it in order, even though there is no order. But yeah, we started with the Duel. So with that, then I'll go with you then, Jack. Did you? Well, actually, before I do that, did you both watch it in order, or did you each watch it separately? As in different. As in, did you watch it in order, or did you watch it in a jumble?
Yeah, I went through 1 to 9. I don't know about you, Rhea.
Yeah, same here, in order.
Okay, cool. So Jack, what was your thoughts on the Duel?
I really liked it. It's not my favourite, I don't think, but it's pretty close to being the best. I think I like what you said about this idea of it being its own kind of universe. It really is. And also, just a little aside, I love the fact that, Mike, when you talk, I don't know if you mean it or not, but you use Star Wars language. The spark, the resistance. I love it. It just can't. It flows out of you. There's so much Star Wars in you. You can't help.
It's part of my vocabulary. Well, thanks for that.
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
It's because he's one with the Force.
Oh, definitely. And the Force is with him.
Thank you. Oh, a Star Wars t-shirt as well today.
So I think this had a style all of its own, didn't it? But I couldn't help, and I know it's a little bit reductive, but sometimes I can't help it. Like my brain starts going, oh, it reminds me of that, and there were a lot of things that this recalled for me, like the Jedi episode in Mandalorian season 2 when Ahsoka fights like the head of the village, like the woman that's taken over. It really reminded me of that, and Real like this one, Avatar: The Last Airbender. It had some echoes of that for me as well. And the big duel at the end when they're on like the log.
Yeah.
It's reminding me of Anakin and Obi-Wan over the lava and Mustafar. And it's reminding me of good things. So, that was all sparking off in my brain. Spark. I really liked it. And I agree with you on the art style because, I mean, clearly it was inspired by Kurosawa. So, as Tony says, as the film guy, if you're going to reference Kurosawa, then you're going to get the film guy to be pleased.
Yeah, and obviously Star Wars in itself is one of the reasons that Visions I think works in a lot of ways. Is Star Wars is directly hugely influenced by Asian cinema. You know, the lightsabers, that's just a katana sword that doesn't have an edge. The whole thing is the edge. So then Lucas has come out and explicitly said, you know, it's basically a mixture between Western and the old school sort of samurai and Asian cinema films just put together in space. So that's cool. What about you, Rhea? What were your sort of thoughts on the Duel?
So I thought it was a really strong start. I really liked it because I went in not really knowing what to expect. And I had the same thing. I was like, it's referencing all these other things, but it didn't annoy me in the references. I was like, it felt more, you know, fun that they were touching on these things, but it felt both Star Wars and samurai cinema, which I really liked that blend. And I thought it was such a good start, and I think it set up Visions for me for what it was going to be, that this is something different. How that then translates in some of the later episodes, we'll see my opinion on those. But overall, I'd say it's not my favourite, but definitely in my top. I mean, I can't split. I'd say top 5, top 4, probably out of the episodes. I really liked the relationship between between Ronin and his droid and stuff like that. I liked how traditional Star Wars that was, but didn't feel overbaked at all. So, you know, I thought that was nice. Unlike some of the others, because I watched it, we discussed this, I watched it in dubbed. I would usually watch it subtitles, but I was doing it like whilst hanging out washing and stuff like that. And I was just like, I've got to get through it a bit quicker. So out of a lot of them, I haven't enjoyed the dubbing, and I thought this was some of the better out of all of the episodes.
And Jack, sorry, were you about to say something then?
I was just going to say, like, we were talking about, like, and yourself, Mike, as well, that of this being the first one and setting the tone, I think it's interesting because we don't want to do too much, I suppose, comparing to What If. But I actually really enjoyed the Agent Carter episode, and I know a lot of other people didn't, and they thought it was kind of a bit of a bland, boring way to start that show, whereas this one goes in the other direction, doesn't it? It doesn't go with, like, a slight tweak. It goes all in, like, this is going to be completely different. So if you don't like this one, kind of forget about the rest of it. So I thought that was quite interesting that from what you spoke about, the idea that they both come out really close to one another, this has gone in that direction, which is, get on board now. Yeah. Whereas What If kind of went with, we'll give you a little bit of something new, but we'll give you kind of the story that you already know. I thought that was quite an interesting comparison.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the Agent Carter one is one of the weakest of What If. I enjoyed it, but my biggest issue with it was that it wasn't different enough. And when me and Megan watched it, we were just like, is this going to be a whole series where it's going to be basically 80% the same story, but with a different character? Because I don't care. Like, I liked Agent Carter as a character, but I just thought it's not different enough. I personally would have put the T'Challa episode first, because I thought that one blew me out of the water and everything was so different about it. That was the What If I wanted. But, yeah, so Megan, now that we've spoken a little bit about the Duel, has that jogged your memories at all? No problem if not.
It hasn't really that much. I think realistically I'd need to watch them again. Like, I'm looking at the list and I can remember quite a few of a lot of them.
Yeah.
But again, like, obviously the Duel was the first one that we watched, so that was the first. That was ages ago.
Because I showed my brother that one when we hung out a couple of weeks ago. I was like, look, if you don't watch Star Wars Visions, that's fine, but you need to watch the Duel. Like, anyone who likes, whether or not you like Star Wars in general, or if you just like cool, actiony, or well choreographed movies, I like The Raid is probably the most recent martial arts film I'd say that is a reflection, but also something that's like an evolved version of a lot of the Asian cinema that we really enjoy, the martial arts and that sort of stuff. And so my brother loves all those things. So I was like, you need to watch the Duel. None of the other ones matter as much as because of what he liked, the Duel really worked in that way. And I want to say with the Duel, what I liked is, I think it put my expectations a bit too high. I think in some ways, especially with the next episode we're going to go into, was literally the polar opposite. Yeah, it was. I do not agree. I agree with the choice of certain ways they've structured this, but I do not think the next one should be number 2. But with the Duel, I like the concepts. I like how it feels Star Warsy because you've got the droids and you've got the species, you've got, the Trandoshan there, and you've got like lots of other different species that you see in Star Wars, and you've got, them with the Stormtrooper armor, but it's not the same. I like all that stuff. That's heavily influenced by Star Wars, but like an alternate reality. I really like that. And when I saw her spinning blade thingamabob, I should have looked up what that was called, but that idea is the kind of thing where it's just like, if that was in normal Star Wars, it would probably be overkill, and I'd be like, that feels a bit too much. But in anime, it works really well, because it's just this crazy, mental batshit thing that is just cool. And that's what, Star Wars has this thing, which I think I've heard other content creators talk about it. It's like the cool factor, which is like a lot of the time in Star Wars, you value something being cool than making sense. And you have to kind of get the balance right. It has to be ridiculously cool if it's not going to make a huge amount of sense. And I think that some of these other shows tried a bit too hard and things just didn't land fully. So is there anything else we want to add on the Duel in general before we move on to the next one?
I don't know if it was intentional, but I think it starts a nice theme throughout most of the episodes about Kyber crystals.
Yes.
So, it's definitely something that either they've all consciously done or everybody's just obsessed with Kyber crystals, because every time I've read Star Wars content or watched Star Wars content or played Knights of the Old Republic, all I want to do is go around smashing stuff to get Kyber crystals to make my lightsaber. So, I found that really interesting. I noticed that was hit in almost every single episode.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, I think the Force, it's basically like, there's no one thing that makes Star Wars, but I think, the Force and to some degree lightsabers are two of the bigger pieces of the puzzle that make Star Wars so different from other things. And for clarify, I'm going to say this on each one we go through. So the Duel got 8.3 on IMDb. I don't trust IMDb for everything because it seems like most fairly decent things are between a 6.5 and an 8.5, and that seems to just be almost everything I like is in those parameters. But I think 8.3, fair enough. That's similar-ish to how I kind of would view it in general, and obviously you guys are nodding, so you probably feel similarly. So if we move on to the next one, which this is the lowest rated one of the whole
maybe flip those numbers from 8.3 to 3.8.
Well,
that's too generous.
5.3 it is, which I would probably give it about that if I'm being honest. But so it's called Tatooine Rhapsody, and it's been described as pop punk Star Wars. And I was not a fan of this. The only thing I was a fan of really was Chibi Boba Fett, and he was in it for about 8 seconds. and Boba Fett being in something for even less time than he's in like the original trilogy doesn't really save something. So which one of you two would like to go first on Tatooine Rhapsody? Because I'm sure you both have plenty to say. I don't know which one of you wants to jump at the opportunity first. You're both so polite to each other. Not like normal siblings I'm aware of. Normally be like pushing each other out of the way.
You go, Rhea. I went first last time.
Well, I hated it. It is shit. I watched it and went, why am I going to watch any of the rest? And I literally turned it off and didn't watch anymore. So I watched 2 in the space of I had a whole free evening. My toddler had gone to bed at a vaguely decent time. The other half was watching the F1. And I went, I'm not going to watch it anymore because this is shit. That's how much I disliked it. I think the Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb, whatever rating it was, is too generous. And it just didn't work for me at all. I thought the storytelling was incredibly messy. I couldn't tell what was flashbacks, what was supposed to be the current timeline. I thought the animation did not do anything for me. And I know it's a very specific animation style, which lots of people enjoy, but it was not for me. I thought the story was absolutely pointless. I thought it's trying to say something about friendship and family, which it didn't work. It didn't hit any of the notes, which I didn't mean to say because it's about music.
That's clever.
To me, I thought this was some of the worst voice acting as well. I just really, really did not like it at all.
I see. Well, fair enough. I mean, I'll agree with that. Sorry, me and Megan looked a little bit distracted there because
there's some sort of puddle on the floor and I'm wearing tights and I just put my foot in it and was really confused as to why it met with water. There's literally there's so much water on the floor. It's coming from the tumble dryer.
Gross. Okay.
I need to quickly go and change my tights because otherwise I'm going to be very uncomfortable.
Rhea's tears about Tatooine Rhapsody making its way through.
I was going to say, did you want me to grab slippers instead? You could just...
No, I want to change my tights.
That's fine.
Look how much water there is.
That is actually a lot. You sure you just wet yourself? Is that what's happening? You just wet yourself?
I wet myself with excitement.
Overvisions.
I was so excited about podcasting. I'm sorry, everyone. Can you move, please?
Yeah.
This is quality content.
Literally in a second.
Can you grab a towel as well, please?
Yeah.
This is the behind the scenes stuff, isn't it? This is what Patreon's for.
I mean, yeah, this is the normal sort of stuff. With Patreon, we edit almost nothing at all. As you could probably tell when you listen to it, because aside from the odd time where there's a massive, apart from the time where there's a massive gap, where we're looking up something or trying to figure something out, it's just we go off and ramble nonsense. Me and Megan have had mini, not actual proper arguments, but hot debates while the mic's on about completely irrelevant things on Patreon. So it's a lot of fun there. Sorry, I'm now cleaning the towel and you can hear my creaky chair while I'm trying to clean the floor with this puddle. There is a lot of water.
Yeah, do you not want to check your tumble dryer, maybe?
I'm looking at it. It's there. I mean, if anything's wrong with it, there's not much I can do. The thing is it's because this is so exciting, but we've been having a washing day in a sense. We've just put loads and loads and loads of washing on.
Imagine just one washing day. You clearly don't have kids.
No, we don't. No. I mean, we have. I normally, because I work from home a couple of days a week, I normally do the laundry once or twice a day while I'm working from home twice a week. So generally, I do most of the laundry, but because Megan's off this week, she's doing it. So that's why there's a puddle. I'm not doing
disaster happens.
Now she's back.
With my clog slippers.
Oh, from Amsterdam?
Yeah.
Nice. Do you need me to move them?
Yeah.
Oh, the squeaking of the chair is awful. You didn't even close the door properly.
Oh my god. Fucking hell. It's just constant moaning. I did so many nice things for you today, and all there is moaning.
All you have to do is moan.
Just get me
getting
gingerbread
this
today.
content for free. I don't even have to pay for this content.
Truly behind the scenes. And hitting the mic. I'll keep most of this in, but I'll probably just clean up a little bit of it. That's fine. So I want to make a note of that.
Just getting comfy.
Just getting comfy. Right. So we just had Rhea's thoughts on Tatooine Rhapsody, and she loved it. So
as much as she loves the Tory.
Yes.
Yay!
Even more, in fact. So we'll move on to Jack then. What did you think of Tatooine Rhapsody?
I mean, I'm not going to come down quite as hard, I don't think. I mean, I agree with everything Rhea said. I think the first minute's pretty good when you have the character, he's running away after Order 66, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he falls and he breaks his lightsaber. I mean, I'm saying their character. I haven't bothered spending any time finding out what his name is.
No, me neither.
But then it takes this weird kiddie-friendly twist, which seems totally at odds with the idea that we've just had Order 66 as well. And from there, it's all downhill. It's very odd. I'm not sure what they were thinking, really. I just don't understand. Like, from concept up, it's a real big problem. I mean, it has the Wilhelm scream in it, which is great.
Yep. We noticed that. Yeah, whenever that comes up now, me and Megan went, like, when we first started watching Star Wars, I was like, do you know what the Wilhelm scream is? And she was like, you weren't overly sure.
I don't know.
I showed it to you and you recognised it.
Yeah, it was when I was on the school trip.
Yeah.
Oh, so we went to Paris with the school, and then one of the members of staff that came with us is a massive Star Wars fan as well, and he also teaches media studies. So he was telling me about the Wilhelm scream, and he was like, if you listen to any major movie, you'll hear it. And then after that, I was like, I literally heard it every single time. Yeah.
When we do Star Wars rewatches, we're wait out for it. It's like, I was like, Megan, it's coming up. That happens. Like, Ray, Wilhelm scream. But yeah, sorry, Jack. Yeah, the Wilhelm scream being arguably the best part of the episode is probably an indication of how it's not that good.
Yeah. And then I think this often happens, isn't it? When you're like, if you're enjoying something, like I've made notes for this because I thought, with there being 9 episodes and I want to keep it straight in my head, and I've got nothing else. I just probably stopped paying attention. I just couldn't be asked anymore. Like, I'm not going to bother making any more notes because there's nothing to say other than this doesn't work.
Yeah. As I said, like, for me, Chibi Boba Fett was cool to see. I liked that. I like it was voiced by Tamira Morrison. I'm happy Joseph Gordon-Levitt was in this somewhat, but I thought it was definitely a weird concept. It was incredibly predictable, I found, in the sense of, although it was messy, I was like, once you found out they were a band and he was a big slug thing, you were like, well, he's obviously a Hutt. Obviously, Jabba's trying to get him. And I doubt they're going to end on this big downer. So they're probably going to get to play. And it was just so slow, so messy. And as you say, all the cool bits that you want to find out is like, a Padawan escaping Order 66. Like, Order 66 is one of the most underutilized things in all of the Star Wars at the moment. They've done a few stories here and there, and I think in Legends they did a bit. But it's like, when it started, I was like, we're going to get an Order 66 story. This is exactly what I want. And then I was like, nope, let's do a pop-punk band.
And there's the video game.
Yeah, Jedi Fallen Order does a whole Order 66 bit in it.
It could have been like a parkour chase scene for like 20 minutes of him getting away. That would have been awesome. Him going through some like mad city trying to get away and
having like flashbacks or something to his master or something like that.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, and then it was just this weird pop punk song. And when me and Megan were listening to it, we're like, this not only isn't a very good pop punk song, but also I don't want to hear it. Like, if I know anime, especially starting sequences and things, especially, they're very heavy on having a cool starting theme. I know that Fairy Tail's got a few cool ones. Dragon Ball, some of the new series have got cool ones as well. Or even Dragon Ball Z had Rock the Dragon. So I know that it's quite a key thing in a lot of anime to the starting music. And obviously, Japan especially has such a thriving music scene and so many different layers and alternative stuff. But I was just like, why here? Like, if they had it over the credits, if it, like, they started playing and ended, and then over the credits you heard it, I'd be like, oh, that's cool. But they started playing it, and I was like, oh, it's going to end soon. It's like, no, you just have to watch this band play not very good pop punk for ages. And you're like, what? And it ends, and you're like, what was that? What was, as you guys have both much more eloquently put, it was just one of those things where it's like, I don't understand the point. There was not really much of a message. They didn't really even end. It kind of just was like, oh, they got to play a gig. Yep. Is Jabba still going to kill them? I mean, Jabba's pretty ruthless in every other bit of content. He probably let them play. Did he kill them? Did he let them be a band for him? I don't know. And that was strange. What about you, Megan? What did you think of the...
This is my favourite episode.
Was it?
Yeah. Loved it.
Could you even remember much about it?
I remember the singing. I remember when they sang, they did the little animation where it was the like little jaggedy lines that come out of their mouth to show that they're yelling.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't really like it that much.
No.
I didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
I don't really remember much about this again.
Yeah.
However, I remember not enjoying it.
Yeah, when I showed Megan, I was like, oh, this is this Vision thing we're going to watch. And the Duel came out and I was like, that's amazing. It's really cool. But it probably won't hit the right marks for Megan because she isn't as involved in that sort of stuff. So I was like, okay, the second one, it started and I was like, this is going to be the kind of one that Megan likes. And then it ended and I was like, Megan is going to hate me.
Yeah, it wasn't selling the show to me, if I'm being completely honest.
Not at all. I feel like I should have watched them all and then kind of chosen an order and just omitted a couple of them. But so we're all pretty on point here that Tatooine Rhapsody, I think we all consider is probably the worst of them, I'd say. So you guys may not.
There's one I think's worse than this. Yeah.
Oh, I've got a thought of what that might be. It's probably the one that's similar animation style, but we'll get to that. I'm sure. Is there anything else you guys want to say about this? Probably not. But is there anything else you want to add? No, both shaking your heads. Okay. So as I said, that was 5.3 out of 10 on IMDb. I'd probably be fairly in agreement with that, if not a bit less. So we move on to number 3, which is The Twins. Now, for the English dub, Neil Patrick Harris and Alison Brie were the main characters in this. Interestingly enough. It got 6.3 on IMDb. And so let's go. I'll say some of my thoughts on this in general. I thought visually incredible. I thought it looked amazing. I thought some of the ideas behind it, like Kyber crystal armor, was quite cool. I quite like the Star Destroyers connected and stuff. But I think the idea was cooler than the execution. I think that on paper it sounded amazing, and then the plot was a bit weak, and the dialogue was pretty awful. It was that kind of really standard tropey, like late 80s, early 90s anime, where anime didn't have as much of a Western following, so they didn't put as much effort in to the dubbing. So half of it just doesn't land. It's just that sort of thing of like, oh, the Kyber crystal, it's got so much power. I can feel the power. It's fuck off. Jesus Christ. And then the big bit that I remember Megan asking me, and I had no answer for this, was how did they breathe in space?
Right. Oh my God. Right.
Everybody
gets pissed off about Leia floating around in space. Right. Everybody, but the internet lost its fucking minds over it. Like, actually lost its minds. It was the most insane moment. I was like, everybody just calm down. It's a fucking fantasy film. And I love Star Wars, but chill the fuck out. And then in this, they're just hanging around on tops of ships, fighting in space all the fucking time. I don't like this episode. I like it more than Shitty McShitty Tatooine Rhapsody Shitty. But I just, and that just drove me round the bend. It really, really annoyed me. And I couldn't suspend my disbelief from it because we've got this history of people being pissy little babies about Leia floating in space.
I mean, I do.
I've really been holding that in. I didn't know that I was.
I mean, that's one of Megan's. That's one of the things that makes Megan hate The Last Jedi.
Oh yeah, I think it's so dumb. But this also goes to show how much I remember about visions, because I don't even remember asking Mike that question. But I do remember them being sat on top of the spaceship.
Yeah, because
that is one of the reasons why I despise The Last Jedi, is because she does this weird fucking voodoo magic trick where she floats across space with her hand. It pisses me off.
I don't piss you off, my love. I think they could have done that scene a lot better in Last Jedi. But
I think they could have done it better. But I also think, I'm not like Megan, like one little thing's not going to annoy me, and that's fine. But I'm like also like in all of, the things in Star Wars history that we can get annoyed about. And I doubt Megan was on the internet being like, oh my God, Star Wars is ruined. I hate women.
Every minute.
Die. Right? I was just like, can we just have a proportionate response? And then we get a whole animation short of people pissing about in space on top of starships.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense in a way that they're in spaceships, so there's spaceships and there's like ray shields and stuff, so you can see that there's something keeping the air in. I thought it was going to be a case they're going to go outside and like their crazy crystal armor was going to like pop up and be like a mask breather thing, like in certain characters in Legends, or like Darth Vader when he gets damaged, or like they're part robot or something, because they're these specially made evil twins. Yeah. Or just even a line of dialogue just being like they've learnt to breathe in space, or they channel the Force through them to allow them to spend 5 minutes in space. Because I thought they were going to fight, and then what was going to happen is eventually the point they're not having air was going to become apparent, and it was going to be like, oh, now they need to get back in because they're running out of air. But that just never happened. It was just like, so can everyone breathe in space? Is it just these two? How hard is it to animate one of those just circle things that's just clear over someone,
I mean, how hard is it to animate that? How hard is it just to write a good story?
Touche. So what about you, Jack, then? I know that you were seemingly quite annoyed by the same sort of thing as well. What about your thoughts on that element as well as the rest of Twins?
Yeah, well, I think, we're in the realm of space fantasy, let's be honest, and then we're on anime space fantasy on top of that. So we should be allowing a little bit of scope for it, but I don't either. I hate it. It really bothered me the second it started. And I'm sort of in between somewhere with the Leia moment in Last Jedi. I don't like it because I just think it's badly done more than... Yeah, and I know I know there's like excuses after, like there was a bit of air that was being sucked out of the ship with air and stuff. Like they came out with all this bullshit afterwards to try and get away with it. Just, there's some rules you can't break, and you can't breathe in space. That's just it, right? There's no oxygen up there. So like, that's just it. You can't break the rule. It doesn't matter what genre you're in. There's some things you just got to stick to, I think. So that bit really bothered me. But I agree with you, Mike. I love the animation. It was quite like flat and 2D and like retro in that way. I thought it was really cool. Years ago, like nascent internet era, I loved this like web show called Ninja, the Little Ninja.
Right. Which
I then Googled afterwards because I wanted to find out what happened to it. Because it was just these guys releasing it for free. I think there were about 12 episodes they released over the course of a long period of time, like a year, a couple of years. And then it went away because somebody gave them the commission to make a movie. And then, of course, that never happened. So you can't watch it, unfortunately. It doesn't exist. But it was just like they were making it on Flash. It was like this Flash 2D, but it was so cool. So it reminded me of that. So I was in on their animation style. But yeah, the exposition dumps of dialogue were just fucking awful. Just people standing there just explaining stuff to you. About how the Star Destroyer works. And it was like, and this does that, and that does this, and the Kyber crystal does this, and because we're twins and we're joined, and the ships are joined. Like, okay, we get it. Thanks, we get it. Let's move on. The end was cool. We had like a New Hope trench run combined with a Holdo maneuver destruction. It looked visually awesome. Made no sense whatsoever. But I'm sort of a mixed bag for me, this one.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Megan said specifically when we watched it was when he did the hyperspace jump and he's holding his lightsaber, the first thing you just yelled at, you went, how was she alive? You watch the whole ship get like cut in half, and then you go, oh, so it gets to here and it cuts her like this. She's got like the Kyber crystal thing in her armor in a sense, but it's like, but that was that was like a half a meter up from where the lightsaber should have started cutting her. You should have cut her from like her legs up to that point. And it didn't. And it cut the whole ship beneath her in part. And so it was one of those things where I liked the idea of the twins. And I was like, oh, this is almost like, what if Leia and Luke had been picked up by the Empire? And I was like, this could be very interesting, very cool. And obviously one of them slightly good, one slightly bad. The imagery, the parallels are good. But it was, as you guys said, the dialogue was awful. And then if they'd have just done 2 or 3 tweaks, I could have probably got over the dialogue because it's just some anime just has terrible dialogue, at least the dub versions do. And that's just kind of, anime does often have quite cheesy, lame dialogue in a lot of elements, even stuff I like. So I was like, I can be okay with one thing or the other. When it's, especially this is only like 15, 20 minutes long or something, it's like there's not that much content to really warrant having 2 major elements of it being bad, or at least badly executed. And it was such a shame because there were so many cool elements to it. As Rhea said when we talk about the Duel, it's like Kyber crystal stuff. And that is such an interesting thing. And I love the idea of using Kyber crystals to make different technology and stuff, like with the armor. But it just then completely undid itself by the hyperspace jump and the fact they could breathe in space. I don't know if you have anything to add. I know you couldn't remember this one that well, but you have anything to add on the twins one?
No, not really.
Cool. Fine. Anything else you guys want to add before we move on?
I don't know what Neil Patrick Harris and Alison Brie were directed to do, but they're just screeching at each other. Delivering their dialogue was just unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that dubbing got past anybody. And they're like, yeah, we'll publish this. I was just like, I'm sorry. Why did you not get those 2 actors back to redo it? Because that's the worst dubbing for me.
Do we think it's on purpose? It's meant to be like retro. It's meant to be, because Mike, you were saying that. Like it's harkening back to these types of anime, which I don't have any experience in, so I can't comment. But do you think it was a purposeful thing?
No. I think they were trying to make it look and feel retro. Yeah. But it's like one of those things, and it's one of the things that this one and Tony beat me at with Comics in Motion, which still triggers me today, which is saying that Star Wars has always been inconsistent, and therefore, for new ones being inconsistent, that's consistent with previous Star Wars, which I think is the most bullshit answer ever. It's one of those things where it's like, if you're doing something to be a homage to something else, it has to be you're homaging over the good bits or taking the mick out of the bad bits. You don't just go, the shit bits from that old film, that pithy dialogue and how women are represented. Let's bring those elements back into modern film. It's like, no, you choose the good bits and you mock the bad bits. You don't bring the bad bits forward. That's literally when people remake films, they seem to always do, which drives me mental. But yeah, that I do not think they did intentionally. I think what they were going for was something that was big and epic and stuff, but like, the only time, from my experience with anime, when you have it where characters are yelling and it works is when there's a build up to it. Yeah. When there's some sort of, it's normally Dragon Ball Z, it's about them powering up and they normally fight about 18,000 times, get almost killed about 12 times, and then the last kind of hurrah, they build up all this power, there's like a whole episode of them just charging power, then they go for it. And it's kind of like, okay, you've had 3 hours of content to build up to this point, and it's a build up and then it explodes. When you've got the first 5 minutes of something that's 15 minutes long, and immediately they're just shouting at each other, it doesn't level up. You don't feel the emotion. You just go, these people.
It's just one note, isn't it?
That's exactly it. That's a very good way of putting it. Yeah. So, wasn't as much fan. I think it's kind of middle ground-ish. I think, visually it was great, but the other things kind of let it down a bit. But I don't think that was the worst for me. You guys ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's do it.
The Village Bride. So this is one of the ones that we just rewatched, Megan. So you should remember this one.
Well, no, because I went to the toilet. We watched it just before the podcast, and I needed to go to the loo, and it was going to finish at
Yeah, I know.
So I didn't actually watch it. I went to the toilet.
Yeah, I know, that's fine. To be fair, this one was actually
the puddle mystery continues.
So this was one which and I want to clarify when I'm saying some of the actors in this, I've only picked out actors generally that I either recognise or things. I'm not going to just sit here and read out.
Because Mark Hamill was in one of them.
He was. I
recognised the voice of Mark Hamill.
I think he was somewhere, but I don't know if it was listed on IMDb.
I tried looking on IMDb and I couldn't find it.
It seemed like he was like a narrator of one thing, but he does seem to randomly cameo and stuff, and they don't always credit him. They call him someone else because he's been in like all the sequel films, I think. Apart from, I think it was Solo, he has some sort of minor cameo in, mainly vocal stuff. But this one, the only actor that was in the English dub that I recognised was Karen Fukuhara, and she is from The Boys, which people know the silent one who's with Frenchie. She's in The Boys. That's the only name that really jumped out to me that I sort of recognise. But The Village Bride, it got 7.6 on IMDb. This one I did enjoy, I'd say, but let's go with one of you two. I think I can't remember I keep forgetting who I start with, so I feel really rude. I don't want to just.
Jack can go first because I jumped in the last one being angry about moving in space.
This is an interesting one, isn't it? I think I could see that people would really dislike this one because it has a dreamlike quality. It has like at times it's keeping you a little bit removed from the story, I think. But I was watching thinking, I'm not sure I like this, and then afterwards it stayed with me, which told me that it did something good. So, I really like the main characters. I like Valko and F. I really like their designs. They're really cool. With that cool, like Valko, there's like helmet that came up, and it had a like mask, didn't she? Like Bane type mask. I thought they've been really well designed. And then we had all this stuff that was going on around them about like being, symbiotic with the world that they live in, and there's that kind of environmental message that was going on. So, yeah, I think. Initially, I was unsure, but then, like I say, the after I finished the whole series, that's one that has stayed in my mind. Whereas some others have done a Megan and they've disappeared off.
Doing a Megan's a very good way of putting it.
Megan.
Megan will not remember a film that after watching it once, apart from really, really specific ones like V for Vendetta we recently watched.
No, the best one was when we watched Spider-Man. The original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and I had seen it, but remembered nothing about it apart from the fact that I remember him being in a room that had big windows. And I was like, he's in a place and there's really big windows. And then we were watching it and I was like, there it is. I was like, there it is. There's the windows.
It's just his bedroom in the first one.
It's in his flat.
Of all the things of the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man to remember, of everything in the whole film, good and bad, you remember the fucking windows.
I still probably couldn't be able to tell you what actually happens in Spider-Man.
It's got Willem Dafoe and he gets bitten by a spider.
That's okay. Yeah.
That's the main way you can remember it.
If you're not on Letterboxd, Megan, you need to get on there because you'd be everywhere of these, like people posting like, look at this funny review that this person's done, because that would be a real Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I love that scene when he's there with the big windows. It'd be great.
It's just in his flat.
Yeah, Megan. It's funny because Megan has such strong opinions about Spider-Man 3 and almost none about the first two. But we're not going to get into that. If you want to hear about that, guys, go on our Patreon. It's on there. It's on there. And Megan spoke. Actually, it's on the Comics Emotion feed actually because we released it on the Spider-Man 3 review because me and Megan went on about it for half an hour.
Chris called me his spirit animal.
Yeah, because of just how off on one you went. We just couldn't. It's one of the only afterthoughts where I couldn't stop you talking because you were just like, and this is shit, and I hate James Franco. He sucks. And why did this happen? And that dance was awful.
Anyway, let's leave Spider-Man 3.
Rhea, what did you think of The Village Bride?
I really liked this episode. I know not many people have been that glowing about it, but for me, it felt very Avatar: The Last Airbender. It could have slotted into any of their seasons. I thought it was a really nice, gentle pace and quite different from a lot of the others and from Star Wars in general, which I really, really enjoyed. I thought that it actually had quite a lot to say. I mean, I think it was, cheesy in terms of it wasn't anything that we'd seen before. And we all knew what was going to happen, right? There's the mouthy sister. I wonder how JAC feels about that, who gets herself into trouble. And the more sensible sibling who's trying to sort things out. And it's really obvious that F is clearly a Jedi and all of those sort of things. But I just think it was really well done, really well executed. And like JAC, it's one of the ones that stayed with me. I just thought it was really nice, short, succinct storytelling that knew what it was doing.
I don't think there was a moment wasted in this one. I think that it was, because when it was one of those ones that I really remember enjoying it when I saw it, but it was one of the ones I remembered the least. When the details, I was like, I specifically wanted to rewatch this before this podcast because I was like, I remember enjoying this, but I could barely remember anything about it. So I don't feel bad about Megan not remembering it because I genuinely didn't before we watched it literally half an hour or an hour ago now. And so with it, I really enjoy the pacing, as you guys said. I like the feel of it all, the connectivity and stuff. And, I like that it's quite an insular story. It's the polar opposite of Twins. Twins is trying so desperately hard to be, this is going to destroy the world. These two Death Stars can blow up planets again. And you're, can you just leave the fucking planet killers for a rest for just a couple years, please, Star Wars? I'm sick of it. I don't need every threat to be world ending or galaxy ending. Sometimes it's just you want to save 20 people. That is a big deal. We don't need everything to be the world ending stuff. So with The Village Bride, I liked the local feel of it. I liked that it was it's the journey of F and the other character whose name I've forgotten. But their journey, they were just kind of in that area at the time. And they just saw some customs of these people and they just happened to be there when the separatists came in. Obviously, we got the battle droids coming in, which was cool. And I really liked the ending where it had the kind of very old school samurai stuff, the trope and it's not a trope in a bad way. I think it's a brilliant trope where you've got the samurai holding a sword in its sheath and it just lifts it up by an inch and then something in front of it cuts and it's the fastest cut ever. That's what it made me feel when the separatists has got the girl at gunpoint. And then she's there and there's really cool, high heel shoes that were quite futuristic, which are really interesting. I liked it when they slowly fold back.
Oh, yeah, they're like the jet shoes.
Yeah. And then she suddenly just click. And then she's on the other side of him with her lightsaber drawn that's yellow, crackling. And he's just there for a second. And I quite like that anime trope as well, where someone kills you so quickly, you're not really dead yet. And then his hand, falls off and stuff. And I just thought they could have made this big, massive action scene and going all crazy and stuff, like the Duel did, like Twins tried to do and stuff, but it didn't need to. She wanted to be precise and quick and snap. And that's what she did. Mm-hmm. And I think it fitted in with her character really well. And I like the connections with the separatists. I like the fact that's the kind of Star Wars adjacent stuff I liked because once again, that almost felt like it could have almost been in the Clone Wars in a sense, but not so much it's entrenched in the canon. So I really like that, and I like the look of her lightsaber as well. I've got a note here, which is I quite like although lightsabers show up quite a lot in these, I like how most of them have some sort of interesting variant, and I like that. I like, some of them, they're really thin, like actual swords, and this one was quite similar to that. So I thought this was really cool, in many different ways. And yeah, there's the planet's memories, which is quite an interesting concept. I quite enjoyed. Right at the end, I'll ask about certain things we want to finish it off, certain things we'd like to see from this in the canon, but that's probably one of the ones I would like to see. So is there anything else you guys want to add on The Village Bride before we move on?
Nope.
I mean, other than, I think, we spoke at the start about this idea of East meets West, and this is a really good example of that that blending, isn't it? Like we've got Yahimbo, and then we've got a fistful of dollars, and then we're moving back again. So we've got the idea of, like Star Wars is inspired by Kurosawa, and then we're moving back into the East again. So I think it does that perfectly. It balances those two worlds.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, so this had 7.6 on IMDb.
Yeah.
So it's the fourth highest one. Yeah, it's the fourth highest one. So it's general middle ground-ish, which I think it probably deserves maybe a bit more than 7.6. I think it probably near an 8, but, I don't necessarily hugely disagree with that. So we move on to episode 5, which was the Ninth Jedi. Now, this is the highest rated of all of them. This is one that you and I recently watched, so we'll let Megan...
I can actually talk about
because she literally watched it about an hour ago, so there's no excuse to
and I remembered it all anyway.
You did. It was probably the only one we probably could have got away with not rewatching, but it was my favourite one, and the one that Megan remembered the most, which would have been helpful to watch some of the other ones.
My brain, I don't understand my brain.
But Ninth Jedi, go on then, Megan, take us away with what you thought about this
I
one.
liked it. It was good. I really enjoyed this one. I thought there were lots of different things about it that were really interesting, and they're things that I would like to see in different Star Wars movies, like how the lightsaber is specific to the individual, so it changes depending on who's holding it. I thought was a really cool concept. I really, really liked this one. This was definitely my favorite by far. Realistically, I wasn't overly fussed about the whole series in general, but I kind of knew that going into it that would be my thing. But I was really surprised by this episode. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, because I think when we watched... Because as I said, we generally-ish watched them in order, but I think the Ninth Jedi and the Village Bride were two of the longest ones. So I think those were ones that we didn't quite watch till the end, or nearer at the end of our watch. And I think that those two were the two that I recall you probably enjoying the most. And they're the ones we watched towards the end.
Yeah, so. and the Lop and Ochô one I liked as well. But I really, really enjoyed this one.
Yeah. I've got... with Ninth Jedi, I agree with you there. I think the concept of this was excellent. The whole execution was amazing. The plot, I think, is probably the strongest in this one of all of them. And this was one of the only ones that I saw, and I was like, I actually want more. I would love to see a sequel. I'd love for them to bring out Vision Series 2 and there to be Ninth Jedi Part 2 or the 10th Jedi, whatever you want to call it. I thought every character was balanced. I thought they brought about loads of interesting concepts. There was like a couple of twists, not just one, but there was two, which was quite brilliant to do in a 20-minute, basically one episode of an anime. The fact that you could do that, this was another one where I don't think a moment was wasted. And I don't think even a quarter of a second was wasted. I think this was as close to perfection as you could get in this format and amongst these. And I think the ideas that the studio had when they made this was absolutely on point. And for me, I feel like this could almost have happened hundreds of years after the end of episode 9. I feel like this could have basically happened in Star Wars. And as Megan said, the attuning of the lightsaber crystal, that's such a genius idea that I would love to see in Star Wars done in the right way. Going forward, and I think that it's both a genius idea within the Star Wars universe, but also as a plot device. Without like the twins basically having to be one or the other, this marry it together very, very well. So, flaws, yours guys. Which one of you two wants to go next?
I don't really have anything else to add. I completely agree. This is possibly my favourite. It may change as we talk about the others, but yeah, I really enjoyed it and. I had this great moment. So I was tidying the kitchen whilst watching it, and I knew that the twist coming with the group of Jedis was coming because it just felt like it was, but not in a sort of like, oh, it's really obvious way. It just felt like that's clearly what's going to happen because it's such good storytelling. And I genuinely went, oh no, like in excitement when it happened, just by myself in the kitchen with my headphones on. That I just really liked it. I thought tight storytelling. I could see a whole series just carrying on this story. And again with the dubbing, which I'm going to keep on going on about, this was the best for me. I think they really got it. They really nailed it. And I loved it.
And Jack?
Yeah, I mean, this felt like the pilot for a TV series, didn't it? The rest felt like individual stories, but this felt like the start of something that everyone would want to watch. I think Cara is incredibly likable as a lead.
Yes.
She was really well concepted and acted by the voice actor. I think the score was really epic. It's the first one that I thought like that was hitting the John Williams realm that Star Wars deserves. I really like the look of the photorealistic backgrounds at times. So when she was on like that speeder bike and it was the chase scene, it was almost like drawing over the top of photographs, which I thought looked really cool. The Force is strong with this one.
Yeah, I loved it, and I think as well it's actually got 3 twists in it, I realised, which is the twist of the Sith acolytes being Sith, not Jedi. That was
I'm not sure that's. I think they tell you that's going to happen personally.
They do.
It's necessarily a twist. I think they kind of telegraph that.
But it's quite clever because when we rewatched it, when Ethan walks up to them and says, "Oh, are you guys Jedi here too?" They don't answer his question. They say something. They say, "Oh, we received the call."
Are you
masterless?
Masterless Jedi?
Yeah, and they said we were messaged by Duros to come here and whatever. So there was. I mean, I see what you're saying. It's a twist to the characters inside the universe, but you do get led to the conclusion. It's one of those things, a little bit like Fight Club, I find, where about 15, 20 seconds, maybe a minute before it happens, you're like, I think this is what's about, and then it happens. You're like, it is. So I like that. The other thing was obviously the robot droid thing had the guy inside of it. I quite like that idea. And then the other thing I really liked actually was that the guy who had the red lightsaber, and then once they were all beaten, it changed to purple, and he was like, "Dude, basically back up. Like, you remember, you're with us.
You're a goodie."
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and he had the purple saber, and I really enjoyed that as well. And I just thought with the main girl that you just said her name, Cara, where her lightsaber color was like, it was this interesting, she hadn't really found herself.
Translucent.
Yeah, and she hadn't found herself yet, but during the fight when she knew what was right and what was wrong, it became green. And I think, we could almost do a whole podcast just on this episode, because it's even like the asteroid mining. It's just a tiny bit at the start. We've got these oil rig looking things flying into space and pulling stuff down. And the temple underneath an asteroid, there was just so many layers to everything. And as I agree with you guys, like, I would love to see a series of this. Like, I think it'd be excellent.
Sounds like we're not alone if it's the highest rated.
Yeah, it's the highest rated by a fair amount. The next one down is the Duel, which is at 8.3. And this was 8.6. So, yeah, very, very good. And everyone seemed to enjoy it a lot, which I completely concur with. Is there anything else to add before we move on to the next one?
I guess it's just not really surprising considering. So it's Production IG who did that segment, and they've done millions of things that you would have known. But I think, one of the best things that I think works with this is they did the animation sequence in Kill Bill Volume 1 for the Origin of Oren Ishii.
Wow.
And obviously it's Ghost in the Shell, Neon Genesis Evangelion, which I can never say, the Sakura Wars and all of that sort of stuff. So I think, it helps that they've got that powerful story. They are amazing at telling stories. And I think that shows. And I'm not saying like this against any of the other animation studios, but when you're comparing to that sort of skill and talent and long history, I think this was always going to be the one that comes out on top.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Very good point indeed. So we'll move on to the next one, which is Toby, or TOB1, obviously about the little AI droid boy, very similar in style to kind of Astro Boy in a lot of ways. So did you remember much about this, Megan?
Not overly, no. I think I enjoyed it, but I don't really remember it.
It's quite cutesy.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of the other ones which aimed at a younger audience.
Yeah.
And you can feel it as soon as it starts.
I think I remember that. I think I don't remember disliking it. I can normally remember the emotion that I felt when I watched the thing if I can't remember what is actually in it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I feel neutral. I have no real emotion either side, so
I can see a lot of people really, really disliking this, and I can see especially a lot of Star Wars fans really, really disliking this. But I personally enjoyed it. I don't think it's the best, but I thought it was good in certain aspects. But what about yourselves? Do you got what are your sort of thoughts? I think Rhea started last time, so let's go to Jack this time.
I hated it.
There we go. I knew one of you would. I knew at least one of you would hate it. I thought
it was so painful. Toby is the new Jar Jar. I hate Toby.
That's a bold statement.
That is.
Oh my god! And it just felt like all the shit from episodes 1 and 2 put into 20 minutes. I just wanted. I wanted it to be over so badly, and I think it's the first time ever watching something in Star Wars. I thought, oh, come on, Sith, just win and get this over and done with so we can. Yeah. This is the Star Wars fanboy coming out. I mean, this is that, the guy sitting on his computer in his parents' basement in his pants. Yeah, this was a really painful watch for me.
Do you think this was worse than Tatooine Rhapsody?
By a long way.
Wow, really?
I didn't like Tatooine Rhapsody at all, but I vehemently hated this episode.
Wow. Just quick, do you think this is the worst piece of Star Wars you've ever seen? Or the worst 20 minutes?
It's up there with probably the worst 20 minutes of Star Wars. It's up there with some of the stuff in the Clone Wars movie.
Oh, yeah, that is. That's the only that I think Tatooine Rhapsody I think is not great, but I think the Clone Wars movie is probably the only bit of content in Star Wars I've ever watched which I think is actively bad.
God awful.
Yeah, that film sucks.
And Toby.
So then, Rhea, what about you? What do you think of this?
I did not hate it as much as Jack. I'm pretty middle on it. I didn't think it was fantastic. I didn't think it was particularly bad. I thought having a droid, it being like a son and all of that sort of stuff, I thought it was a bit old hat. So I didn't care for it, but I certainly didn't hate it. I don't think it's the worst. I think we all know which one I think is. I just thought it was there was nothing new, or I don't think it brought anything to anything to do in the Star Wars universe. It was all right. I mean, in a common theme that seems to be this, I was tidying up some toys from the floor whilst watching it, and I was like, it's all right in the background for that, but I'm not going to go back and watch it.
Yeah, I'm more similar to how you feel about it, Rhea, although I did enjoy it somewhat. I didn't love it, but I do think that I actually really enjoyed the concept, but I only enjoyed it right at the very end. When I heard about a Force-sensitive droid, I was like, not a fan, really. It doesn't seem to work. But because his core was a Kyber crystal, and Kyber crystals are actually alive in the Star Wars universe, I think that element of it elevated the whole show for me, the whole episode, where I was like, Force-sensitive droid doesn't work. But then if you think, well, the core, the thing that's bringing it to life, the power, the battery of it is something which is inherently alive in Star Wars and creates power for lightsabers and Death Stars and everything else. I think that being at its core made the whole thing work more. I think the dialogue was a bit weak. I thought, I wasn't thrilled when it was going on. I wasn't like, when's it going to end? I was more like, I'm kind of mildly apathetic. I don't really care that much about Toby or his master or anything. When that bad guy showed up, I thought that was a bit weak. I was like, I know where this is going. I don't care. They're not going to kill off this thing. But I think that the idea, although it wasn't executed perfectly, had some merit to it. That I think that if they, I feel like in the Taika Waititi Star Wars, if they did something similar where they had like a weird droid that was just a bit weird the whole film, and then towards the end you find out that his power core is a Kyber crystal, and he talks about the Force in a weird way and interesting. I think if it was like an older droid rather than being basically a child, I think I'd have connected with it more. But I just think it was too much a child getting to grips with the Force, but also he's a robot, and it was a bit too muddled, I think. And I feel like the thing that I like the most about it could have definitely been done far better for me. Yeah, but it's one of those things I completely understand.
I think you're making a good argument there. I think I can't disagree with anything you're saying. And it's just at the end of the day, some of these are just going to connect and some that aren't. That's what anthology shows are about, isn't it? I concede all your points. I still hate it.
That's fine. The funny thing is with film, it's like we were talking about when we had that conversation about music. It's like with music and film, they're vastly different mediums, but it's like sometimes someone can explain to you why something is great. But at the end of the day, if you watch it and you do not feel that, and you feel like you're hating it and not enjoying it, no amount of explanation can really change that.
It's like Fight Club. I don't like Fight Club.
Yeah.
And like I've watched Fight Club before I met Mike, and Mike was like, "Well, you clearly didn't watch it properly because you don't like it."
I was saying that partly in jest. I do want to clarify.
Or are you just not a middle-aged white man? Is that what it is?
I do want to clarify. I was saying that partly in jest, but I did say try and rewatch it.
So you watched it again, and then I still hated it. So
you hate it less.
I did hate it less, but yeah, there are just going to be some things that you watch and you don't get on board with.
Yeah.
And I think there's a missed opportunity here as well. I think that that all of these, I take up what we said before, Mike, as well. Star Wars is the Force. Really, that's kind of what it is about. But I think this was the opportunity to have one episode not about Jedis and not about the Force and not about Kyber crystals and not about, because it doesn't all have to be about that. But I think literally every episode isn't it? So I think this was the opportunity where you could have just had that one step removed, I think, maybe.
Yeah, because the concept of it, I really like ideas of AI being sentient and that sort of stuff, and there's like a C-3PO comic that goes into it a bit.
Well, there's also an episode of the Clone Wars where it's just like C-3PO and R2-D2, like, it just follows them and their day.
Yeah.
That could have been what this was. It could have just been the life of this droid living his little life, rather than it being this thing where he wants to be a Jedi. And
Yeah, I think it's one of those ideas where if you look at it from a distance, it can be quite cool, but when you start to really look under it, because it's like he knew all about the Jedi and stuff, it's like, well, did his dad tell him? Because his dad kept telling him to not delve into those things. So it's like, well, how did he find this out? Like, there wasn't an explanation. Like, if he found like an old book or something, then maybe it would make sense. But I think the dad kind of was a Jedi, but maybe wasn't. It's all a bit grey in the areas where it could have really done with a bit more, just a minute or two of extra exposition, weirdly enough. Take some of the exposition out of Twins, put it into this, and you'd have probably had both of them would have evened out a lot more. But yeah, I think TOB1 was a missed opportunity. I think it was all right, but yeah, I didn't love it. And I got 6.1, so that's the second lowest of all of them. Only the lowest one is Tatooine Rhapsody. So yeah, so we're going to move on to The Elder. If you guys have nothing else to add to TOB1. That's fine. So yeah, episode 7, The Elder. So it's 8.0 out of IMDb. And 2 people noted in there is David Harbour, which I didn't realise till looking it up, which is the guy from Stranger Things. And also James Hong, he's just in lots and lots of stuff. Reeling off what he's been in would be, it's just too much really. But he's done a lot of voice work and stuff. And so The Elder, well, do you remember much about this, Megan? That's the first question I'm going to ask every time we do that.
I actually do remember this one. This was like, there was a master and his Padawan, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then the Padawan was like super keen to go and fight.
Yeah.
He was like really like into going out to fight this thing.
He was almost like he was bored.
And then he goes out there and gets wrecked, doesn't he? Which
I think... Sorry, Megan, let's start there. I mean, that I call BS on that decision. This could have been awesome if they'd had the bravery to kill that kid off and stick with it. But, I mean, what happened? You got a slight little graze or something from a lightsaber? Oh, I hated that moment. It was crap.
But this is the thing as well, is like with that, like, it's like a really old, powerful Sith, isn't it? So, like, the, like, master has trouble fighting him. So the fact that the Padawan survives is just kind of like, really?
Especially because anthology. You just think you don't have to worry if people get upset about characters being killed because the idea is insular.
Because also linking into that, like, it's a flaw, isn't it? Like, it's a path to the dark side because he's like so keen to go and fight. Like, that's not the point of being a Jedi. So arguably, like, I mean, you saw what happened to Anakin. Like, he turned really bad because obviously he wanted to protect Padme so much. He wanted to go and fight so much and he was too keen. And ultimately that should have resulted in a negative thing happening as opposed to, oh, well, I'll smack you on the hand this time, but next time, be careful. Like,
yeah, I agree. I feel like he should have died, or at the very least, it's very common in Star Wars for people to get their limbs cut off. And I was like, this would be a good opportunity if he got like his arm, like his lightsaber.
Because he got grazed anyway. So
if he got his swiped and he just about survived, but his arm was cut off, and then the end of it was him trying to deal with having a new arm and his master going, this is what happens when you go in headstrong and don't think about things. Now you have to adjust and work twice as hard as you did before because of your own, like, stupidity in essence.
My argue though is why the master didn't feel that there was such a dark force.
Well, he did, but he just kind of let the Padawan wander into the general direction.
And that was his lesson.
Because I know that the master was kind of be like, oh, he's probably by a ship. Let's check his ship first. But I'm just like, if you've got a Padawan who's quite gung-ho with everything, you don't let them go off by themselves, especially in like a little small village. They weren't in this giant city like Coruscant where they had to like spend hours trudging. It was like, well, there's a ship over there and there's a mountain over there. He can only really be in one of two places. Why don't we both together go to the ship? When we see he's not there, let's go together to the other place. So I did enjoy this one. What did you think about this, Rhea?
I think it was near perfect, apart from the fact that Dan survives. I think it would have been so much more powerful because I think at the beginning they did really good storytelling in showing that he was kind. You know, saw him interacting with the kids. I loved the rapport between him and his master. I can't remember the character's name. I thought the build up to that was really well. I don't really mind that he went off to the mountain. I thought, it's storytelling, right? They need to split them up for this to have two fights in it, I was like, I saw the point of it being there. But yeah, when he was alive at the end, I was so disappointed because I got there and I was like, this is going to be my favourite one, because it's going to be amazing. That's so dark that he dies, and then his master has to take on the fight, and then like go back to the village, and like I envisioned it. He'd be carrying the body, like Luke does with Vader, and puts him down, and burns him, like maybe burns him in that little village. And then that didn't happen, and it was like, oh, the moral is just to be kind. And I was like, oh no,
it's a cop out, isn't it?
Yeah, like you said, it's an anthology, so it doesn't. He can die. It's fine.
Yeah.
Is this the one where the kids are like really shy, but they are really playful?
Yeah,
yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Cool.
Go on then, Jack. Then, so you're sort of, and I want to say, Rhea, I want to clarify the splitting up thing. That is, for me, is a nitpick more so than. I want to clarify that I do agree with you in essence. I wouldn't quite go far to say I think it's near perfect aside from the death thing. I really enjoyed this. I thought it did a lot of things right. I just think there's aside from the guy not dying, which I think is probably the biggest flaw in the whole thing, I think there's a couple of just minor little bits that are a bit meh, but that doesn't, for me, take away from the story. Sorry, Jack.
No. It's interesting, isn't it? Like how we can all watch these and get such different things.
Exactly.
I thought this was very average. And Rhea, you've been talking a lot about the voice acting. I thought David Harbour was awful in this. I thought he was really stilted. I didn't think his delivery was good at all. And I heard some people criticising some of the What If voice acting. And I think here, I don't think he did a good job at all. I found Dan just really annoying. So when he died, I was like, okay, good. I mean, that's why he was annoying. That makes sense to me now. I thought the elder character was great. I thought the fact that he spoke a little bit like Yoda was really interesting. That he's the bad guy and he's reminding me of Yoda. I thought that was great. The Duel in the Rain was awesome, beautifully animated. I just think, maybe it's that one thing. That one thing it really just ruined it for me. I think it makes sense for how much you love it, knowing your history and background of the animations that you like. I can see that this would be the one that would appeal to you the most. It has a Ghibli feel, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Cutesy characters, like you were saying, Megan, like looking from behind the shed and then him winking at them. All of that feels very, very Ghibli, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of... I think what The Elder did is it didn't go dark enough in the sense that all of it was it was kind of like all culminating to this dark end. As there's the Elder, there's a dark presence, these people go and explore it, all these things, and they was like, oh no, but everything's fine.
Because everything, it sets up everything for him to get killed at the end.
Yeah.
Like everything that happens, the fact that he even goes off by himself into the mountains when he's not like trained well enough or like not at the right point in his training to be at that stage indicates that he would die.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't.
Yeah. It was just a bit of a cop out, and it's just, why do that for an anthology? What did you gain from that? It's especially when there's other stuff in this, which if it was something like, oh, these are all really light and none of them really have any dark themes, I'd be like, okay, it fits with the thing, but it's not. This is one of the darker ones, but I wouldn't even necessarily say it's explicitly the darkest one. So it's like, why did you pull that punch? And it just felt like a cop out. It just felt unnecessary to kind of. The only thing I can think of maybe is the studio were kind of like, what if this could be? What if we could add to this? We'd quite like the dynamic. And I think when you do that sort of idea, it's like the one thing that kills films, especially superhero films, is trying too hard, worrying about setting up sequels. We're not concentrating on the here and now, which is what Yoda says to Anakin. Focus on now. If things go well, think about the future when we get there. Don't screw things up here because you might have something in the future.
Yeah.
Which is
I think you're right, Mike. Would have worked. I think it's what they chose to depict as well. Like if we'd seen him have his arm cut off, I would have been fine with that too. We'd have been like, oh yeah, classic Star Wars. He's getting his arm cut off. Of course he is. But the way they shot it or the way they animated it looked like he'd been cut across the midriff.
Yeah.
It just makes no sense that this Sith Lord, like, I'll just give you a little graze.
Yeah, not finish the job and not, you think the swipe as well. Like how, you have to jump back, like to get cut by something. And obviously lightsaber cauterizes wounds, so you wouldn't bleed out necessarily. But like, for it to cut you and for you to pass out, but for you to not have such severe things you die. Like, what if the master like stood over him and did that force healing thing? Then it'd be like, oh, okay, that would have worked better. But it was just, oh, he got swiped a bit and he's all right.
Yeah, he really should have died.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
Look at us championing the death of children.
Earlier I was about to say he deserved to die, and I was like, that's not the right wording. Don't say that.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, as I said, this got 8 out of 10 on IMDb. I'd be, I think around that maybe. I'd maybe steer a little bit lower, but I think that's a fairly good assumption. I think that the death part is probably the only real thing that's a major problem for this for us. So move on to our penultimate one, if you guys are ready for that. So we've got Lop and Ochô, or Ocho. I may be mispronouncing it, I probably am. I've got a note here. The only reason I wrote this note down of one of the actors in it, it's Hiromi Dames, and she's in Hannah Montana.
What is she in Hannah Montana?
She is Tracy Van something or other. She's the snobby friend of Hannah Montana's. But this was years ago. The only reason he wrote it down was because I saw her and I was like, I don't recognise her. And so I only wrote it down because Megan watches. I used to watch.
Watches. It's not present tense.
Every day. Gets home from work.
Because they've got the best of both worlds.
Hiromi Dames, I think her name was. But yeah, so Lop and Ochô, I think that... Do you recognise her?
I do recognise her, yeah. Not from specifically Hannah Montana, though.
Yeah, but so you, Megan, you said this was one of the ones that you remembered a little bit. So do you want to tell us what your sort of thoughts? Obviously, there's the rabbit person and stuff.
Yeah, I liked this. I thought it had a nice message because, like, it's not necessarily the family that you grow up with that is the family that is the people that you love and care about. It's the people that treat you nicely and that have good morals, which obviously the daughter, like the actual biological daughter in this, turns out to be bad.
I think it's Ochô is her name, I think.
Well, she's not bad, but they just have different views on how the city should be run, isn't it?
Yeah.
So she obviously takes more of a dark side route, whereas the rabbit person takes more of a light side route. But it's just like, because obviously she inherits the family lightsaber. I just like the fact that it's not just passed down from generation to generation from the basis that it's blood relatives, but actually from who deserves it. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the theme of... Because when we spoke with Alex and Molly of Star Wars Explained, one of the questions I asked them was, what is Star Wars to you? Because everyone... One of the reasons Star Wars is so popular, I think, and why it's also so divisive, especially Last Jedi, is everyone has their own thing about Star Wars. Some love the lightsabers, the Force, the Jedi, but others love the starships and the planets and how you can have one scene, there's like a billion creatures in it and stuff. And I think Molly of Star Wars Explained said... the adoptive family is something that really connects with her with Star Wars, because you always have that in all the trilogies. Well, actually, less so the prequels, unfortunately, but in the original trilogy and the sequel, it's all about, someone by themselves, something somewhat bad happens to them, and they have like an adoptive family, people who care about them. And that's quite heavy in the sequel trilogy that they do quite well, I think, with both Finn and Rey. And I think this one, as Megan's pointed out, does it very well. And it's the very nice theme. I said, my notes here is the theme is brilliant. And a lot of the action's cool, and I like the world quite a lot, but I think the core story itself, for me personally, wasn't as strong as it could have been. I think the story's probably the weakest part of it for me, although I don't think the story's necessarily bad. I just think it's not maybe as up to scratch with the other ones. Yeah, I'd say that. And maybe it felt a little bit long in places. It just kind of... There were certain elements I wanted to be longer, but other parts I wanted to be shorter. So I think the pacing was a bit off in certain ways. So I can't remember where we started with again. I'm sorry, last time. So which one of you two would like to volunteer first? And then the other one can be first on the next one.
Yeah, you can have a big finisher here if you want.
Oh, really? I was saying I don't want to because I can't remember it. It's really bad.
Doing a Megan.
You've done a Megan.
I'm really going to force you to do it.
Right, you go first on this one. It's going to be hilarious for the last one.
I think I'm in complete agreement. Yeah, I really love the character design. I thought Lop was really cool. And so different to anything we've had before. Like, second she was on the screen, I was like, yes, I really like this. And there's a great shot of her close up on her eye. And it looked like there was kind of a galaxy within her own eye, which I thought was really great. I love what you said, Megan, about the message. I thought that was really powerful. The action was kinetic. I agree, Mike. However, this is the one that reminded me of Akira. People standing around shouting at each other for like 3 minutes solid. Like, get on with something already. Like, you don't agree, so let's fight, or let's go in a different direction. Like, if that's what, like, I didn't watch Akira for a long time, and then when I did, I was like, wow, yeah, the action is amazing in this. I can see how this was so ahead of its time, but I wish people would stop standing around shouting at each other just incessantly. So I think they're probably bits. It may maybe not be the same bits you're talking about, Mike, but like the pacing here was like, move on now, please stop. And then the dad's sitting talking to to Lop for like 5 minutes, and it's like we said, it's like an 18-minute long short. So yeah, time wasn't always well spent, but what it did right, it did excellently.
Rhea?
Yeah, agreed. I both really loved it and really frustrated with it at the same time for the same sort of reasons. Jack will know I also have an issue when people just sit around shouting at each other. So I don't really like any reality TV or anything like that, because I will immediately switch off. However, I feel like the shouting in this was very true to anime.
Yeah.
As much as it annoyed me, and I was also like, can we just stop shouting at each other? I felt that it was at least there for a reason, unlike some of the other shorts where I thought it was just bad voice acting. I loved the message of it. I loved the animation. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. I thought Lop was beautiful. The action, I couldn't take my eyes off it, but everything in between was just really slow, and I just felt like the pacing was all over the place. I really, really loved the scene of the adoptive father handing over the lightsaber, but I was also like, it could just be that. We don't need the exposition around it. We understand. And he goes like, oh, I've never treated you well as a daughter. But we never saw that anywhere else in the episode. I mean, thank God, because it would have ended up being like 50 minutes long. But I was like, just cut that out. We don't need that. Like it's the action of him giving her the lightsabers, the powerful thing, not all the chatting around it. So it's such a shame, because I think it is really good and it is really powerful, but there are other problems which just makes it not as good for me.
It's not letting the audience do any work, which I think a few of these have a problem with that. And they have to tell you what you're supposed to know, rather than just saying, we would know he hadn't treated her the same as he treated his actual daughter, because we're all intelligent viewers and we know that it's good he's adopted her, but he would never have treated her the same. We just would have known that inherently. So yeah, I think it's not allowing us to be active viewers, as I would call it.
And you see that from the beginning. Sorry, Megan.
That's all right. No, I was just going to say, you know that from the beginning, because it's not even him that wants her.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say.
It's the daughter that wants her. So you can see from the start that it's not something that he ever wanted anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And as you say, Jack, is one of the things that I find with, not only with an issue with this, but also with a lot of anime, which is, I like a lot of anime, but most anime is conflated. Everyone just generally considers most amazing anime series have got about 10% of just filler, either episodes that do nothing, or just like Dragon Ball Z is the one of the worst for it. I love Dragon Ball Z, but there's genuine episodes where someone is just talking before a fight for like 2 or 3 episodes, and you're like, what is happening? And they're just talking about nonsense. It just doesn't add anything. And I think that with Dragon Ball Z happens, and anime in general happens, where it is that thing where it's like, where it's kind of trying a bit too hard to appeal to so many people. It's kind of treating everyone like an idiot. It's just basically being like, right, here you go, here's your hand. Look, they're a baddie. Look, because they're doing this thing and that thing. Oh, also they're going to yell about the fact they're a baddie. It's like, I've just seen her like cut herself with white blood.
She used it as like eyeliner.
Which I thought was really cool. I loved that. I thought that was a really good imagery. And then they went on about how, they followed that by her then talking about the Empire loads. And I'm like, you don't need to explain that. We know the Empire's bad. We've even seen it in this short. If you've never seen Star Wars before, you can clearly see Lop and Ochô have 2 very conflicting views on how things should run, as Megan said, but generally in broad strokes, they want the same thing, and it's just different people going about a similar thing in different ways. And that's kind of a lot of messages in Star Wars in certain elements. And it's just, too much hand-holding.
We all get the symbology of blood and we all get the symbology of red. It's fine. We're on board. Go.
And one little thing I wanted to add as well is she actually has something that resembles a scouter, which I really liked, which is from Dragon Ball Z, the one eye thing that they used to measure power levels.
And it had a little carrot on the side. I was just thinking about that. It had a little carrot.
Nice little things. One thing we haven't mentioned as well, because we're about to get onto the last one, but one thing I forgot to mention was in this one and in the Ninth Jedi, I think it was, the droids. Like, I really like the droid. I can't remember what they're called, but I know in this one, Lop has a droid companion, and in the Ninth Jedi, the girl Kara, Yep, she has a little droid companion that I really like, and they're new designs. I loved obviously in the Duel where you've got the R2D2 with the cool sort of straw hat on. I loved that, but also new droids that are cute. And not just cute for the sake of it. They're just petite, make a little cute noise, but they have use. I really like it when they have that. I love seeing new companion droids, because everyone realistically, like, you know, R2-D2 is awesome. It'd be cool to have one, but like, same as BB-8, but like having a cool little droid with you to just be with you all the time would just be so cool and fun. It's like a little pet, and I really like that element of things in this as well as in the Ninth Jedi. Is there anything that you guys want to add on Lop Ochô before we finish on the last one? This did have 7.3 on IMDb, by the way, as well, guys. So this was I think this was almost dead in the middle for what people kind of viewed it as, and I'm somewhat in agreement. So I think it's a little bit higher. But we move on to the finale, which is Akakiri. Now, this one I think we're all going to probably feel quite differently on, I have a suspicion. It had 6.4 on IMDb, so it's actually... It's Toby at the bottom, then Tatooine Rhapsody, then Toby, then Twins, and by a hairbreadth, this one. So those are in the sort of bottom 4. And there's a few actors in it that are fairly well known, but George Takei is in it, which I quite enjoyed. So I'll open the floor to you. I think, Rhea, you can remember it the least, so you can start with this.
So I've watched it twice. I watched it the weekend, and then I watched it today, thinking, I didn't watch the 9th episode, so I better watch it before this. Turns out I had, and it's come to this, and I was going through Wikipedia to refresh myself, and I'm reading it. I don't remember this episode at all. And I'm not even I don't know.
I saw Megan Googling it.
I had to Google it earlier to see if I could refresh my memory a little bit.
And I'm reading the description, and literally I don't recognise any of this. I don't know any of what's happened, so I have nothing to contribute to it.
Cool. Megan, do you have anything?
First time in, 40 years.
38,
not quite, I know, but, nearly 40 years, you've had nothing to contribute. Wow, it's happened.
Finally did it.
It's recorded for posterity.
It's what Star Wars was. Star Wars have been going for basically about 40 years. This is just a build-up to this episode for Rhea. Megan, is there anything, because you looked up stuff, did that kind of rejig your memory a little bit?
I looked up images, and it's like... is it like her bodyguard? It's like like her bodyguard type thing, isn't it? And then there's like some sort of vision, and he's trying to protect her, and then he ends up having to go to the dark side. Does he die?
Okay, I'll give you a little bit more accurate.
Oh
brief.
my god! I just feel like just let me and Megan do this. We got it.
Yeah,
I know it's a girl.
A girl with a bodyguard. She goes on this journey to basically try and.
Is her dad dead?
You're asking lots of questions, and you need to pause for a second so I can explain it from what I remember. Because this is what I do remember bits and pieces about this, but it's mainly a woman's going on a quest with her bodyguard, bodyguard, and it's about taking down the Empire in essence. Because basically,
they do love to take down the Empire.
They do, but the whole premise of it, and I think this one actually links in with the name Visions the best. Even though I don't think it's the best one at all. But he keeps having this vision of something, and it gets clearer and clearer as it goes on. And the ending it shows, it's very similar to Anakin's journey in Revenge of the Sith.
Well, I was going to say...
It's his whole vision is he's trying to protect her. He kind of falls in love with her. I think they've been friends for a long period of time and stuff, because he was a younger Jedi and he's kind of grown up knowing her and things. There's lots of flashbacks and stuff.
Yeah.
And he falls in love with her, basically. And then the vision is actually, he ends up almost killing her. The vision is him like attacking something. So I'll let JAC, because I think JAC's probably got the biggest handle on this, of plot wise, and your sort of thoughts on it. So the floor is yours, good sir.
This is top 3 for me. I really liked it.
Really?
Yeah, I did. I think, there's familiar elements, don't get me wrong, but then I think we could say that about most of these, if not within Star Wars, within other popular culture. I think it was fast-paced. I think it didn't really do much of that exposition stuff we've been criticising elsewhere. The landscape shots were absolutely beautiful. And in that way, it sort of was like Star Wars meets Lord of the Rings, this kind of like epic journey they're going on. I think they played into that kind of like 2 comedy characters. We had our like R2-D2 and C-3PO and the 2
that was
assistant.
Specific. Yeah, they specifically, I remember checking something online and they were talking about how those 2 characters were meant to be exactly that. And I think R2 and C-3PO are meant to be a nod to characters that were in one of those old school samurai-esque films. I'm being terrible with my generalizations there. Because I'm thinking of the 7th Samurai. But yeah, and I think that they're like a homage to the droids who are homage because it's kind of like a nice loop.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I think their comedy moments kind of work. The big kind of duel at the end was awesome. I mean, it had a very, very different type of movie, obviously, or I know this is a TV show, but it was like Old Boy, where like we're just going to hold and we're going to let this play out. It was brilliant. I think the main character, was he like called like Tsubaki or something like that? They kept saying his name, and I was like, what? Even as I was watching it, but
yeah, I can't remember.
His master almost looked a bit like the Emperor. So again, we're having this like foreshadowing this is going to happen. So I think it all came together really well. I think it's a really bold decision to close this series called Visions, as you said, with this character having visions, that ends with a turn to the dark side, that ends with the bad guys winning. I think that's really bold. That's quite a brave thing to do. This is the only other one that I can remember the score. It felt like I had an epic score. The elements all came together for me in this one.
I enjoyed it.
I feel like I remember enjoying it.
You did when we finished watching, because the whole thing is he slashes the person he's kind of fallen for. She collapses because he's in basically a fit.
She's been put in like the disguise of the guards, hasn't she?
Yeah, she's.
Yeah.
And so he's slashing at them all angrily, trying to get to the sort of main baddie.
Yeah,
and he gets her, and then the agreement is that this person who he was trying to kill and so angry at, they have the power to heal her.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way they're going to heal her is if he pledges himself to them.
Yeah, and then she's like, "What have you done?"
Yeah, it's basically, to me, it was very similar to basically Revenge of the Sith, but what if Padme survived? Really loosely, that kind of thing where you're obsessing over not losing this person, and that ends up being the thing that caused you.
It's a pathway to the dark side, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I thought this was pretty good. I did enjoy it. I, however, would say, although I thought it was quite visually stunning and things, I thought it took a bit too long to kind of get where it needed to be. Sure. Although the travelling parts with those two people were meant to be comedy, I didn't really like them much. I didn't really think they were that funny. I got the imagery and I kind of got the R2-C3PO thing, but I just thought it was a bit too much of that, and I wanted to know more about their relationship and the world in a sense a bit more. And you did get a few flashbacks, and I think it worked, but it kind of left me wanting more in certain ways. But I also simultaneously liked and didn't like the bit where one of them got left behind, and then the guy went back to get him, but there seemed to be no consequence or anything apart from just kind of showing he's a good person, the bodyguard. And I was like, I didn't feel like that was needed. It kind of seemed like unnecessary suspense. If he'd have brought him back dead or something, once again, me wishing characters would die.
We love death.
Yeah, it just did feel a bit like that was a tad unnecessary, but I thought the ending was very cool. And I did, as you say, Jack, I thought that the vision part was so linked with the theme of these. I really liked it. I feel like this one could have either been the first or the last one. I think this and Duel, they're kind of interchanging of they should have been the openers and the closers, I think.
Yeah, they got those in the perfectly right place. And then, the Ninth Jedi was like in the middle as well. So like, I think
bang in the
they
middle.
Clearly knew that those three were, in my opinion, those three are the three strongest. And they probably thought that too, which is why they placed them where they did.
Yeah, I mean, weirdly enough, this is dead in the middle. Funnily, a 6.4.
I think that's harsh.
I think it's a bit harsh. I'd give it a 7, I think. But yeah, that's pretty much all of them. So we'll start to wrap up here, because we've been chatting for a long time and it's been joyous doing so. We'll kind of do some just final thoughts and what we kind of want to see, if anything, going forward. So Megan, did you want to spark off? Because as someone who has probably had the most amount of resistance to Visions, after watching the whole thing and kind of breaking down a lot of the episodes, what was your general feel? Is there anything you'd want to see, and would you want to actually see more?
I want to see more to do with the lightsabers that are specific to the individual. I think that's a really cool concept. Whether or not I would want to watch more Visions, I don't know. A lot of them were pretty hit or miss for me. If they were like the good ones, then yes. Like, to be honest, like, I wouldn't mind watching a whole series to do with the Ninth Jedi. Like, I want to know about what happens to the guy that makes all the lightsabers, because there's, like, one of the Sith people that specifically says, "Oh, your father's been taken to a mysterious camp and you'll never get him again." And it's like, all right, well.
I mean, that was better voice acting than half.
Thank you. Hire me, everyone. But, like, I would want to know more about that. Like, I wouldn't mind watching a whole series of that specifically.
Yeah.
Whether, like, just, let's go on tour with the Tatooine band. Let's release an album.
Give it to everybody free on Apple Music.
Force them. Yeah, do a U2 on everyone.
Yeah, I think, it's just mainly to do with the Ninth Jedi. I'd be interested to see more stuff that comes out of that specifically.
So if they released a Series 2, would you want like a couple of sequels to your preferred one, but would you also be interested in trying, if they did like a whole new series of Visions and say a couple of them are sequels, but there was like the majority with new concepts again, would that be something you'd be interested in giving another go?
I mean, I wouldn't really have a choice because I live with you.
I mean, I can watch them without you. I want to clarify. They're short enough I can watch them when you go to bed, but it's just out of intrigue.
I would watch them with you because I want to watch stuff with you, but if it was up to me specifically, then I probably wouldn't.
Not enough of them hit for you to warrant.
No, not really. Yeah. If I knew that they were going to be like the Ninth Jedi or the ones that I really enjoyed, then yes. But if they're all like things that I wasn't really like the twins, yeah.
That was the one I think you hated the most.
Yeah, I think it was. I think I actually disliked the twins more than I disliked Tatooine Rhapsody.
Yeah.
But
it's like everything you don't like about anime. All in one. It's like the major things you don't like about anime is all in the twins.
Basically. But yeah. So there.
That's cool. Okay. So who wants to final thoughts? Either of you? I think you've done fairly evenly of who started first. So I don't know. Final thoughts for whichever one of you wants to put your hand up and go ahead. You're both staring blankly.
I'll go. So I think answering the same questions, I'm the same. If they released a whole series that was just of the Ninth Jedi, I'd be all in for that. And I think it would just be amazing. In terms of if they did a Visions 2, I would love them to do a Visions 2 with different studios from maybe like European studios, maybe get, I would love it if you could see it like Cartoon Saloon, which is an Irish studio, like just Wolf Walkers and things like that. Imagine them taking on Star Wars, that type of thing. I think that would be much more interesting for me rather than going back to the Japanese animation studios, because I think they've done that, and where it's successful, they've done it really well. And let's not retread that, although it's Star Wars, we love retreading stuff. And yeah, that's where I would like to go, and that's where I'd like to see it. Would I rewatch it again? I would rewatch certain episodes. I clearly need to rewatch the 9th episode again, because even when you were talking about it then, it all just fell out of my head. So I'll go and watch that at some point. But yeah, that's what I would like to see for the future.
And then same to you, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is pretty 50-50, which I know it can't be because it's 9 episodes, but I'd say like half of it's good and half of it's not so good. But I would just, I mean, it's Star Wars, isn't it? So we're just going to lap up the content. Let's be honest. Whatever they bring out Visions 2, I'd probably watch it. Obviously, Toby, the action figure, is high on my Christmas wish list. Hopefully that'll be out.
I'll make it
a little talking Toby would be great, please. Because I'm going to smash it up. Yeah, I mean, I can't do any more than echo what's already been said by everybody so far. I think, yeah, the Ninth Jedi is easily the best, by a long way, the best episode. And if they don't do something with that, they're silly, really.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think we're all... although we enjoyed certain episodes differently, I think generally speaking, it is Tatooine Rhapsody and the twins are the two weakest ones. And then Toby is still, it's kind of low-ish. And then obviously the highlights is, Ninth Jedi I think is undisputed the best one. I think it's just every single level, it's just phenomenal. It's such a good, I was blown away by that. And as you guys have said, if they said Series 2 of Visions, we're going to do a few episodes of Ninth Jedi and some other stuff, I'd be like, well up for that. But if they're like, we're never touching Ninth Jedi ever again, I would be disappointed. I'd be like, you've missed an opportunity here.
The Ninth Jedi, I think, is one of those things that they could easily turn into like comic books or a book, or they could bring it into canon, because I think it was just so good that they could make it canon.
It could almost be a template, like for like episode 10 or something. If they had nothing to do with Skywalker Saga, I always say like with Skywalker Saga, when they do episode 10, eventually, even though they say they won't, they will. I want it to be like hundreds of years in the future. I don't want it. I want a couple of maybe cameo holocrons about Rey, maybe a statue of her and the new Jedi Order's flourished, or something like that. Just kind of its own thing. And if they did a template of the Ninth Jedi for that, although I think it'd probably lose some of its gravitas, because when you'd start watching it, you'd be like, this is Ninth Jedi, I know what's going to happen. I think that thematically and a lot of the ideas in it really land. And I think the Ninth Jedi is a perfect encapsulation of what Visions could be. And what everyone generally, because of the reviews and everything, everyone unanimously agrees. Ninth Jedi is amazing. This is what everyone wants. And the majority of people unanimously agree. Tatooine Rhapsody is not what anyone wants. Why would you bother? Which is interesting because Rhapsody is the closest in the canon in the sense of where there's familiar characters and all that stuff. Yeah, it's the strangest. But yeah, I'm in agreement with you guys. I think Series 2 will probably come out. I'd watch it because I'm a junkie. But I quite like the ideas that are done. I like the experimentation of it. But once again, it's just so up and down. I'm not like, I can't wait for Visions. It's more like, if it's on, I'll watch it. And I enjoy the fact that all the episodes are quite short. I think that's a very good idea on their part. Wonderful. I think that's relatively everything we can say about Visions. We've done an excellent job here. So let's give ourselves
tight to an hour.
Yeah, nearly 2.
I mean, we had the whole the puddle incident.
That was only about 3 minutes, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm going to keep most of that in. So the joys, Visions featuring a puddle. Right. So we'll say that blah 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 words. We'll say our little social media things and we'll sign off. So Megan, go on then. You love saying it. Do you want me to say it for you?
No.
Because you love it. You love saying what your Instagram handle is.
Hi, I'm Megan. I have a podcast. It's new. It's called Femme on Film. No, I don't have a podcast. I have an Instagram.
You can come on it.
Thank you. Exciting times ahead. Yeah, no, I'm not interesting enough to have a podcast, so I don't have one.
No,
but
you're so interesting. You can only access it via a paywall.
Yeah, I'm so special. You have to pay to hear me.
Yes.
And all you'll do is listen to me ramble and just
argue with me about films. Tell me all the films I like suck.
About movies. But yeah, I've got Instagram. It's about my health and fitness journey. And food. It's Grits Gets Fit. Today, if you go on there, I mean, this is going to come out in the future, but recently I posted a picture of me with shit tons of pumpkins. So what a treat. But yeah, that's that. That's me.
Awesome. Well then, I think Rhea went first a minute ago, so we'll go for JAC. You can see because Rhea's got the new special thing. So
she does, yeah. She deserves that bit of time to shine.
Exactly.
It's nice that I come after Megan as well, seeing as my handle is obviously taken from Fight Club, so it's very fitting that I am Jack's Megan's hated handle. You can find me on Twitter under I'm Jack's Musings, but it's JACS. Forget the K, and then I'm all over Comics in Motion as much as I can be. Season's Greetings with Tony, Indie Comic Spotlight with Tony, Pop Grillers with Tony and Rhea, and then guesting wherever I can whenever the time arises. So we've got the Cinema Book Club, depending when this comes out in the future or in the past, on V for Vendetta, which has been mentioned a couple of times tonight.
Yeah. And I'm very excited about the one we'll do after that, but don't want to spoil that. Don't want to ruin something I'm not even involved with because I'm not going to be in the V for Vendetta one because I was like, I need a moment after too many podcasts. Wonderful. Well, Rhea, let's go with you then. I was going to say I'll let you finish off, but I'm an egomaniac, so let me do it. I'm the host.
This is your podcast. You take the ends. Come on.
You're the anchor.
Well, I don't know about that.
So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Rhea Carrigan, which is RIACARROGAN. I am literally everywhere. It's quite tiring, so I'm probably going to be off for a little bit in November. So listen to my dulcet tones now. So popping up on Comics in Motion. Obviously, I am a fellow pop gorilla. Indie Comic Spotlight with Tony. I've just done 20th Century Geek. I've just done Spider Dan. Obviously, I've on with you recently, although I think those have all come out. Oh, and Femme on Film, which I just
that was the main thing. That was the main reason.
Which, as I mentioned, I've just launched, which is what I think is an amazing look at films for women, by women, starring women, everything to do with women, because we're amazing. So come and see us there. I'm going to force Megan to come on now. That's it. You're done. Maybe we could just be mean about films that Mike likes. Maybe that's what our episode will be.
Oh, Rhea, I actually thought of you yesterday or the day before. What film were we watching, Mike? We were watching a film and a penis came on the screen. Yay! And I was like, yay!
Midsommar.
We were watching Midsommar.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a penis on the screen. And I was like, yes!
Yes, thank you. That's what I want people to recognise me for, to celebrate when they see a penis on screen. Yeah.
Wow.
What a legacy.
Cocky Carrigan. Fine. Okay then.
Sorry to turn the tone.
It's fine. I mean, there's almost the only thing that's not really in Star Wars much is sex. So you fill that void, figuratively and literally. Awesome. Well, I have been your host, Mike Burton. I am not quite as everywhere as everyone else because I'm drowned myself in my own podcasts. So, but I have been guesting a bit, but I'll put some of that stuff in the description because there's a lot. But yeah, Star Wars Comics and Canon will be on. I think I'm releasing this on Comics Emotion. So this very feed, new episodes every Saturday, I tackle Star Wars comics. If you've never read a Star Wars comic in your life, or if you've read every Star Wars comic ever, and I'd be impressed if you had, please check out the show because I talk about plot details, so you never need to read a comic, but it's a good refresher. And also I talk about the many connections. I talk about species and planets and other bits of trivia and just random things when you recognize a character and you're like, where's that from? I tell you, that's what I'm here for. And then I've got my other show, Genuine Chit-Chat, where I have honest conversations with interesting people. Megan occasionally randomly pops in as a co-host, and I talk to a wide variety of guests. And I've spoken to Megan on her own solo show. I've spoken to JAC as well, and I've spoken to Rhea. So there's no excuse to not go over there, subscribe. Please subscribe to my YouTube as well. I need to get that up to 100 subscribers. And then also check out our Patreon. And I say because it's the only way you get to listen to Megan every week.
What a delight.
It is a delight. You know,
It is a delight.
Go on road trips together, talk about movies, series, and a couple of other random bits and pieces. And for as little as £1 a month, you get access to hours of additional content and early access to Genuine Chit-Chat. And you can find me at Genuine Chit-Chat on all the social media places. So thank you so much, guys, for spending so much time talking Star Wars with me. It's really, really good talking about Visions and all these different perspectives on so many things. One of the reasons I love talking to both of you. And if Visions 2 ever comes out, you guys are in, and you can't say no anymore. You have to be. That's it. Megan might duck out.
Yeah, it got to this podcast, and Mike was like, "We're doing a podcast at 9. You don't have to do it." And I was like, "I'll do it."
You were hesitant.
I'll be there.
After watching Visions, you were a bit hesitant about like, should I, shouldn't I? And I was like, "There's no pressure." And you added so much, Megan. Did a good job.
Thanks.
So thank you so much, guys, for coming on the show. As always, it's an absolute delight. And check out everyone's amazing stuff. I'll put links in the description, and we'll talk to you all soon. So goodbye, audience. Put my hand up to wave, even though I'm not releasing the video element of this. So that's good. And that's the end of the podcast. Thanks as always for tuning in, guys. As I said in the intro, please make sure you check out these show notes. I've got information on Rhea and Jack's other shows, their social media, and all that sort of other stuff that we discussed. In addition to that, if you're new to Genuine Chit-Chat, please make sure you check out some of the other Star Wars-centric episodes. So in episode 110, I spoke with the author Claudia Gray. Episode 121, I spoke with actor Dominic Pace, who is in The Mandalorian. Episode 138, I spoke with Alex and Molly Damon of Star Wars Explained. That were Star Wars YouTubers. And then recently in episode 143, I spoke to the Italian comic book artist Paolo Villanelli, who has done artwork for the Star Wars Bounty Hunters comics, as well as Lando Double or Nothing, Vader Dark Visions, and a bunch of other stuff too. So there's loads of Star Wars content to get your teeth into. In addition to that, if you're listening to Genuine Chit-Chat or Comics in Motion, please subscribe to the feed. There's plenty of other content that you can get your teeth into. In addition to that, if you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe as well, because I'm trying to get my YouTube subscribers up to 100, because I know like 99% of you guys listen on the podcast apps and almost no one listens on YouTube, but just if we can get those numbers up, that would be really, really handy. In addition to that, what we said at the end was my Patreon. So patreon.com/genuine chit-chat. You can listen to me and Megan ramble on about a huge amount of different things for as little as £1 a month. You get access to an audio feed, which you can put the link into whatever podcast app you prefer, and you get hours and hours of additional content from me and Megan. So you get at least one episode of Afterthoughts every week. Certain weeks you get 2 episodes. We do road trips, movie reviews, TV reviews, as well as I've done a couple of comic book ones as well. And we are due to record an Eternals episode tonight because we just watched the Eternals. So that should be out in the next few days as well. So if you want some spoiler-free reviews of some series and some movies that are only 15 or 20 minutes long-ish, then make sure you check out my Patreon. It would mean the absolute world to me if you could become a patron. But if you don't want to do do that and you still want to try and support the show, please share on social media, review on Good Pods or Podmatch or Apple Podcasts or anywhere like that, or like and share from YouTube, or just share in general with your friends. Just any way of getting either more people listening or reviewing or rating the show would be absolutely incredible. And the last thing really to add is to talk about my Star Wars show. So if you're not listening on the feed of Comics in Motion, go over to the feed of Comics in Motion. But if you're on YouTube, it will already be on there as well. So in essence, it's called Star Wars Comics in Canon. If you've never read a Star Wars comic before in your life, or if you've read every single Star Wars comic there is, then consider checking it out. So I give plot details as well as lots of additional information. There's connections to other content. And I basically do it in a way which, if you haven't read the issue of Star Wars that I'm tackling, it doesn't matter. You still get the information that you require, as well as the story information, etc. But if you have already read them, then it gives additional information that you may not already know. So loads of reasons to check that out, especially if you have never read a Star Wars comic and you're looking to get into that realm, or if you just want more Star Wars content but you can't afford the comics or invest the time in them, but you're a bit of an audiophile. It's a really, really good way to get into those things. So yeah, loads and loads of plugs for myself, and that's going to be where we end it. So thank you as always for tuning in, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you listening all the way up to the end. Make sure you share all the love on social media with Rhea and with Jack as well, and I'll talk to you guys next week. I've got a few conversations lined up, so it's going to be a surprise what that episode is. So thanks as always for listening, guys, and talk to you then.
You have just experienced host, creator, everything elser of Genuine Chit-Chat, and also the host and creator of Star Wars Comics in Canon, found on the Comics in Motion podcast, Mike Burton.